Coming up on today's show, we've got some Broncos draft news to get to as Denver hosted edge rusher Laiatu Latu on a pre-draft visit. They also hosted a running back, so we'll take a look at that, talk about the position as a whole, but plenty to get to on today's show. So welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here. Starting things off with a Laiatu Latu update here as Ian Rapoport tweeted out, UCLA edge rusher Laiatu Latu, one of the draft's best pass rushers, is on a top 30 visit to the Vikings today. Source said he was with the Bears yesterday and already met with the Broncos. Plus, he has Arizona Cardinals tomorrow, and that was earlier this morning. So we get a little bit of a tidbit that the Broncos hosted the UCLA pass rusher earlier in the pre-draft process, and I'm not blown away by this. You look at the numbers he put up last season for the Bruins, 49 tackles, 21.5 tackles for loss, 13 sacks. Those tackles for loss were some of the best, I think the best actually, in all of FBS, and sacks he finished fourth. So let's just get to know Latu for a moment, and then I'll kind of give you my opinion and analysis on this potential draft pick if it ever does come to fruition. But he's 6'5", 259 pounds, ran a 4.64 40-yard dash. Now, when it comes to the top three pass rushers in this draft class, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, and Latu, I think each of them have very unique skill sets. Dallas Turner is the best athlete of the bunch. There's no question about that. Jared Verse, I think, is the most well-rounded of the bunch. He's great against the run and against the pass. And Latu is the best overall pass rusher, and the numbers and the production speak for themselves. So Latu is the most talented edge rusher in this draft class. I think he's got the most most clubs in his bag. I think he's got the deepest arsenal. All those pass rusher cliches we see, they all apply to Latu. Is he the most gifted athlete of the bunch? No, he's not. And there are some concerns, right? Medically wise, he had to miss 2 seasons at Washington due to a neck injury. People thought he would never play football again. At least doctors in Washington did. Ultimately, he proved them wrong. But coming out of the combine, it doesn't appear like any team had a major red flag on his medical history, but I'm sure the Broncos brought him in to have their doctors take a look at him. But my concern for Latu is the biggest pro that comes up when you talk about him is the production, right? 13 sacks, 21.5 tackles for loss, has been so dominant the last 2 seasons for UCLA. I'm not going to overreact to fifth-year player dominating Coastal Carolina's left tackle and the Colorado Buffaloes offensive line. Like, that's where Latu got a lot of his damage, and those were 2 of the worst offensive lines in football last season. So for me, I do think you have to look at it from all angles and understand maybe when you're 22, 23 years old and you're going up against 18 or 19-year-old left and right tackles, you're going to have a fair amount of wins, right? And when you get to the NFL, that's not going to be the case. So I have concerns about that translating it over to the pros, which is why I do like Latu, but he's third on my big board for the edge rushers in this draft class. I think he could eventually evolve to be a 7 to 9 sack player, and that's not a bad thing, right? There are a lot of GMs that if they were told on draft day, this guy's going to have 8 sacks for 4 or 5 straight seasons, a lot of teams would be very, very happy with that type of production. But I don't think he's ever going to be a true number 1 pass rusher in this league. So I'm not over the moon about drafting Latu. I'm not against it necessarily, but it would not be my first pick or second or probably even third for all the guys in this draft class. Now, Denver's front 5 sure could use some help at the pass rusher spot. Like, I think we saw some really good things last year from Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito. If Baron Browning plays the entire year, he probably has a lot more production under his belt. But Latu, I think, would help out more on the defensive line compared to the outside linebacker room. I think he would join Zach Allen in that defensive end 5 technique spot. Curious to see how that translates to a 3-4 defense when he gets to the NFL if he does end up with the Broncos. But overall, Denver's pass rushing unit last year, it left us wanting more. I think we can agree, but I don't think it's a disaster of a unit. There are worse in the NFL. There are better for sure too. But overall, like, I'm encouraged by what I saw out of Cooper last season, out of Benito for that middle portion of the year. Baron Browning, I think, had a good end to the season. Zach Allen had some really good plays and some really good games altogether. So I'm willing to let this unit, I wouldn't be stay as it is. I'm sure there's going to be additions made to it, but I don't think it has to be the first addition made in the draft. Now, do you want to draft Laiatu Latu? Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section below whether or not you'd like to bring the former UCLA Bruin over to Denver. Now, if a Latu pick does happen, I would not be surprised if that involves Denver trading back. NFL or college football reporter for the Georgia Bulldogs, Kramer, the Colts are looking to trade up for Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, a source tells A to Z Sports NFL. So let's just keep that as a rumor. I don't think Kramer, who's going to be flying through Jerry Seinfeld's door, will have breaking news on Brock Bowers maybe going a few spots earlier to Indianapolis. But if that is the case, I think this is what you could expect a trade to look like. The Broncos go from pick number 12 back to pick 15, where the Colts are right now. And in exchange for falling back 3 spots, Denver picks up Indianapolis's 3rd round pick this year, which would give the Broncos 3 picks in the top 100, pick number 15, pick 76, and the newly acquired pick 82, which I could see Sean Payton and the Broncos doing because as of right now, they've got 2 picks in the top 100. Personally, I would stay at 12 and just go Brock Bowers. Earlier when I said there are a few guys I have ahead of Latu, Brock Bowers, I think, as a prospect, is someone I'm much more comfortable with and a much bigger believer in panning out in the NFL. He's an absolute lethal weapon with the ball in his hands, a yards after catch monster, an adequate to above average run blocker, which for his size and just the way the tight end position has been trending in the college ranks lately, you don't find those types of players every season. I've got a much higher grade on Brock Bowers as a prospect than Latu, and I'd be a lot more comfortable with that pick. And I also think you're going to have some struggles at quarterback, but you give him Brock Bowers to throw to along with Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims, and they're going to have a lot more success. So for me, I would just stay put at 12 and go Brock Bowers over that trade and getting Latu at 15. Now, we're going to talk about the running back visit next up on the show. But first, our sponsor today, Prize Picks, which is daily fantasy made easy. I'm talking about the #1 DFS platform in all of North America, where all you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players, choose more or less on their projected stats, and then you get to watch the winnings roll in. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. For this evening's games, I'm taking the more on Austin Riley for the Atlanta Braves at half an RBI. Now, you might notice there's a demon next to it. That means it's a bit of a more difficult stat projection to reach, but the payout is more lucrative. I'm also taking the more on Aaron Gordon at half a 3-pointer made. We just need one, baby. So if you like my selections and you want to have some extra fun while watching sports after, I would say, we reach the downfall of the sports apex, then download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, the Broncos beat reporter for the Denver Post, Ryan McFadden, tweeted out, Kentucky running back Ray Davis will visit the Broncos tomorrow per source. Davis rushed for 1,114 touchdowns for the Wildcats in 2023. So this was yesterday on the 8th. So fast forward to today, and if McFadden's sources are correct, then the running back Ray Davis should be in Denver maybe by the time you're watching this right now. And last season for the Wildcats, 1,129 yards, 21 total touchdowns. I mean, he was a scoring machine for Big Blue Nation. Now, some background information on him. 5'8", 211 pounds, so not the perfect size for a back. I'm a little bit more towards a Jaleel McLaughlin size, but I think when you watch him, he plays a lot bigger than 5'8", and he runs faster than a 4.52 40-yard dash. So with the pads on, I think he looks a lot better than maybe what the combine measurements would indicate. Now, cool factoid about him, rushed for over 1,000 yards at 3 different schools, started off at Temple, went to Vanderbilt, then went to Kentucky, and it's believed he's the only player in college football history to accomplish that. Now, he does have a lot of wear and tear. 746 career carries, 3,626 yards. You can have a lot of carries and still be successful in the NFL. I mean, guys that did that come to mind, like Adrian Peterson got a lot of touches at Oklahoma. DeMarco Murray had basically just an Oklahoma thing, I think. But I'm not completely on board with Ray Davis as a prospect for the Denver Broncos. For starters, I think Denver could look into adding a running back, but at the same time, I don't really know if that guy's going to get a whole lot of touches, right? If you don't think Javonte Williams is the guy for you long term, then yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea if you fall in love with someone in this draft class. But if you do believe in Javonte Williams and you're looking for a complementary style back, I mean, you've already got that in highlight reel Jaleel. Samaje Perine's going to take care of pass protection and in the receiving end of things this season. And the best part about drafting a running back is maximizing their rookie contract. If you're going to take a guy just to have him be fourth on the depth chart and burn up 25% of his cheap deal, then I don't really see what you're gaining by making that move. Now, I personally have just more of a gut feeling than anything else that we're going to see a breakout season from Javonte Williams. He'll be 2 years removed from that major knee injury, and he'll be entering a contract season. To me, it's just the writing's on the wall. 2 years removed from an injury, contract year, running back, big season coming for Javonte Williams. So that's just me trying to speak it into existence more than I've got, arguments to back it up with besides the two things I already said. So I'm not really rushing to the altar to draft a running back this year. And I'll expand on that, but let me turn it over to you guys. Should Denver draft a running back? Type D for draft or P for pass to keep it simple. I've been blabbering up here for 5 minutes on the subject. Let me know what you think. For me, I'm going to pass. It's already not a great running back class. So it'd be one thing if this was a loaded running back class and there was a really good running back that fell to you in round 5 that in other years would have gone like round 3 and you're like, we just can't pass on this type of talent. But I don't think that's the case this year. So if you're not going to have the true runway of their rookie contract, because based on the construction of the running back room, I don't see an avenue for that guy to get a lot of touches. I'm not really on board with drafting a running back for Denver this year. I just don't think the timing is right. Now, Sean Payton showed us a little bit of a glimpse last draft as to maybe some habits and tendencies in his draft. And, man, if he likes a guy, he's going to go up and get him, right? He was a big fan of Riley Moss. Traded a future third-round pick to move up and get him. Really liked Drew Sanders. So if there's a running back that he could fall in love with in this draft class, I think it would be Jalen Wright, the Tennessee Volunteers running back, who last season was a part of a 3-headed monster backfield in Knoxville, put up over 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. So if you just do, box score comparisons from all running backs, he's not going to really jump out to you a whole lot. But keep in mind, he had 137 carries and put up over 1,000 yards. There are some other running backs that are perceived as much better than Jalen Wright. They got double the carries and not a whole lot more yardage out of it. And then I also think about Sean Payton, Tennessee running backs. I feel like I've been down this path before. Oh, yeah, Alvin Kamara back in 2015. So Jalen Wright, I would say, has been loosely comped to Kamara. And as a Tennessee grad and someone that was in college when Kamara was there and watched every snap of Tennessee football last season, I didn't walk away thinking, now that's Alvin Kamara 2.0. I think that's a bit of a lazy-ish comp because they both went to the same school and they both are explosive playmakers. But Alvin Kamara was a much better receiving back in college than Jalen Wright. And maybe in the NFL, a team will use Wright as a receiving back more than Tennessee did because that really wasn't Josh Heupel's offensive scheme and whatnot. They wanted to get the ball out to the receivers, even though they sucked, but that's for our Tennessee podcast. So I do think there are some similarities because they do have that get around the corner, separation type top end speed. But watching them play, I don't think it's apples to apples or even like oranges to tangerines. But it would not surprise me if we get a surprise pick at 76 because Sean Payton just looks at Jalen Wright and thinks, I can reset at running back with my next Alvin Kamara. And things were great with Sean Payton, the Saints, and Alvin Kamara before they paid Alvin Kamara. And ever since they paid him, it just wasn't as good as it was beforehand. And that's the case a lot of times for running backs, right? Often you're paying a running back because of what they did for you before their contract expired. So maybe that's what happens this time, where Sean Payton feels like that could be the difference maker for him, and they're going to run the football a lot this year, whether it's Jarrett Stidham or a rookie starting, so why not add more to that room? But I would be a little surprised if they prioritize running back in this draft class. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing down below. Help the channel continue to grow, and we will catch you guys next time.